Episode 14 of the Rock Metal Fan Nation album Song Rank and Review Series features the brand new 8th studio album from In This Moment entitled Godmode. What an awesome title for an album. Very, very bold. And I'm going to admit, I was very terrified to not only listen to this album, but rank the songs and review it because I love this band. They're one of my favorite live performers of all time, but their last few albums have really slipped off for me. In my opinion, they were not very good at all. The band tried to evolve by deconstructing their sound, and I just don't think it was necessary. I understand that the band set the bar impossibly high with their album Blood, and I'm not expecting another Blood album. In fact, their follow-up album Black Widow was kind of like Blood Part 2, but not as good. I'm all about bands evolving, but their last 2 albums really just have not done it for me. But I've been rooting for this band. Blood was really their breakthrough album that helped them headline festivals and tours alike. And since then, I feel like their set lists are really leaning on their back catalog. But the band is still relatively fresh. I still think they have so much potential. But here we are on album number 8, Godmode. Let's get into this ranking. Before we get started, just a refresher. This is the track list of Godmode, tracks 1 through 10. And on the other side will be the song ranking from least best to best. Keep in mind, these are my opinions. This is meant to start a dialogue, so please, if you have a different ranking along the way, throw it in the comments. Ranked 10th overall as Everything Starts and Ends With You. This is a mid-tempo, broody, industrial metal type, I don't want to say ballad, but it's a little more quiet. The verses are soft, the chorus kind of picks up, and this reminds me very much of the industrial metal band Stabbing Westward, who I love. They were great at making these very catchy industrial metal songs that aren't industrial metal like super heavy like Three Teeth or Rammstein, but more of a calm kind of vibe, and that's what this one gives me. I really like it. There's a time and place for this tune. It is very different from a lot of In This Moment songs. What you'll find here is the band really leaning into their industrial side. You've got a lot of techno, a lot of keys happening, but there's still a nice groove. There are not a ton of effects on Maria Brink's voice, which is something that I really like. I think sometimes there's a little too many things going on. This one is very bare bones for an industrial track. It's simple. Get in, get out, very strong chorus. Even though it's at the bottom of the ranking, I thoroughly enjoy it. As hypnotic as the song feels as you transition from verse to chorus, in the bridge the song picks up, you have a little more of a punch and a bite to the guitar. Still a hypnotic vibe, yet it kind of breaks you out and gets you into a little bit more of a head-banging mood before that final chorus comes in and you kind of want to close your eyes and vibe out to it. And it seems that I am doing it again. I am picking on a song that has a feature. I'm usually not a fan of guest features on rock and metal albums because I feel like they kind of distract from the song or the album itself. However, Damaged features Spencer from Ice Nine Kills. Awesome singer, great frontman, and he duets back and forth with Maria Brink in a very clever way. I'm so glad to be hearing him sing on a song that is not horror themed. Maybe it's just because we're getting close to Halloween and that's all we're hearing lately. It's cool to hear him approach a different subject matter with Maria Brink. And the song is fine. It's a little bit generic. I think it would be perfect for the radio. A lot of the songs on Godmode are really creative and unique, and I think Damaged follows a formula. It's not a bad formula, it's a winning formula where you hear it on the radio a ton and there is nothing wrong with it. Damaged is simple, it's fun, it's heavy. One complaint that I have is that the vocals are very, very distorted. I know they did this on purpose, and that's the line that you flirt with in an industrial metal song. Sometimes, like, how much is enough, how much is not enough when it comes to vocal effects and sound effects overall. The voices are a little bit too staticky for my liking, considering they both have such great voices. You could leave them alone. Maybe a little too much tinkering on Damaged, but a fine song overall. As much as it might follow the radio rock or metal type song structure, it also follows the vintage In This Moment style guitar-wise. So these guitars are rhythmic and steady. The riff is focused on that string bend, which they do so often. Very groove metal style. I would love for In This Moment to perform the song with Spencer live because I feel like it'll hit a next level and probably hit differently. As quote-unquote generic as I might make it sound, I still recommend you listen to it because by the time the last chorus comes in, you're head banging along to it. There's an undeniable hook that even if they rely too much on it, doesn't take away from the fact that it rocks. Believe it or not, we are already getting into my favorite songs in the album. Number 8 is Skyburner, and I love this one. It starts with some very sinister keys before breaking into a riff that matches it. And hear me out. Listen to the song Mistakes by Godsmack. It is a very similar riff, and the notes are extremely similar. It's one of the dark and brooding songs on Godsmack's Awake album. It's very, very metal. Now, despite this menacing kind of crawling riff, Maria takes a very atmospheric, trippy approach to her vocal deliveries. Her voice is soaring over this slow, menacing riff, and it's unlike anything I've heard In This Moment try in the past. It's industrial, it's heavy on the metal influence, but it's also atmospheric and trippy. As I use all these ways to describe the song, what I've realized is this is In This Moment being progressive. That is not a label that you would really throw on the new era of In This Moment. They're industrial metal, hard rock, radio metal, whatever. This song is progressive, it's out there. There's still a strong hook to it, but this can easily fall under the radar to radio listeners. That's why I encourage you always to listen to full albums, but this is a little hidden gem here. I love it. It's so atmospheric. It takes you to a different dimension. This song you hear In This Moment unlocking a new potential. I said they can't repeat the album Blood. They just can't do it. This is the band moving into different territory that I didn't know they could do. At number 7, we have Sacrifice. It barely edges out Skyburner, and now we're in a club. We are in a club that is playing industrial metal music. It reminds me of Stabbing Westward once again, with a little bit more of like a Rammstein remix type to it. The intro features this industrial metal beat that goes boom, 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 and immediately you want to headbang, you also want to dance. A great opener that immediately captures your attention. This leads right into the verse, and what I like is it's still just that synth techno beat that's happening. No guitars yet. You get a nice drum stomp that's following the synth, but you could hear Maria Brink whispering her vocals, and a lot of verses she does that. She sings soft or quietly. This makes her choruses really stand out, but sometimes there's so much going on that you might lose her voice in the mix. No, she is right in the front of the mix on this song, which is instantly different than the traditional In This Moment formula. The song's pace continues to build, and I love the pre-chorus in the song. Maria sings, "So what if you say I want it? What if I say now's the time?" It adds to these clubbing vibes even more in such a cool way. It's entrancing, it's kind of hypnotic, and then we get to the chorus. Now the chorus doesn't change much up other than the rest of the band joins in. With such a great beat, there's no real reason to change what is going on, but there's still a nice crescendo to the chorus. Unlike a lot of industrial songs that you hear in a club, the chorus is filled with lyrics, which is cool. Sometimes just like one word and then this like crazy beat. Instead, Maria is singing a lot over the beat, and I think that is really cool. It is such a fun vibe. I would say that this might be one of the biggest surprise songs on the album for me. It's something I did not expect. They're not trying to hit you with a crazy drop. Instead, the whole song is the drop itself. It's incredibly unique and it's very lively. A lot of In This Moment songs, they start diving into this weird, creepy style, which I love, but sometimes feels a little too weighed down by the creepiness. This song still has that haunting edge, but it is fun, it's upbeat, and it's clubby. Who would have thought? Next at number 6 is I Would Die For You. This is the album closer, and it was also featured in the John Wick 4 soundtrack. I feel like a lot of rock and metal bands are stepping up and delivering songs to the John Wick franchise, and it's awesome. I Would Die For You is very similar to Everything Starts and Ends With You. They're both love songs. They're a little quieter, more down-tempo, but I Would Die For You, to me, is an instant classic. This sounds like a song that you've heard already, but definitely have not, because it doesn't remind me of anything else, but it just sounds so familiar. The hook is incredibly strong. The line, "I would die for you," is not a groundbreaking line. It's not the most unique. However, the overall song structure in this industrial ballad type setting is fantastic. The chorus's hook is perfect. In This Moment ditches the groove metal guitars on the song, and especially in the chorus. The production quality is really solid because you have heavy industrial synths going, but right next to it is this wall of guitars. It reminds me of what Monkey from Korn said in an interview for their dubstep album, where he talked about making the guitars sound like a wall of sound to match the electronics, and that's the background of I Would Die For You's chorus. To sum it all up, the verses are great, the chorus is massive, and the bridge is really cool too. Things quiet down because this is a very dramatic song. It's a dramatic statement to make, and the chorus, such a high point in the song that the bridge brings everything down, and you hear Maria Brink's vocals kind of in the background saying, no matter what they say, I would die for you, and she starts yelling it, and her voice gets louder and louder in the mix, and then boom! The last chorus drops. It is perfect. It is awesome. It gives you chills. It reminds me of the bridge section of Adrenalize. Nowhere near as heavy or as good in my opinion, but a similar style where Maria Brink's vocals start lower in the mix and then rise up to a crescendo, and then you're hit with that epic chorus. I Would Die For You is top tier behavior. This is the type of single that I want to hear them release. Not necessarily Damaged, which was fun. However, I Would Die For You is much more unique and leaves a lasting impression. Alright, so we have covered the bottom half of the album, which is hard to believe because ranks 8, 7, and 6. I just love them. They're awesome songs, and same with Army of Me. Rank number 5. This I did not know was a cover. I'm a little pissed that it was, but not really. In This Moment has been throwing covers into their albums, and I like a lot of them. We Will Rock You, maybe not so much, but they covered Maisie Starr's Into Dust. That was one of the best things I've ever heard. Army of Me is a cover of Bjork. She's a pop singer. The song actually came out in 1995, and the riff sounds very Korn inspired, and I thought maybe In This Moment added this riff and that it's not in the original, but I went back, I listened to the original, and that riff is actually in the song in a very pop sense. So that melody is there, those notes are there, but it's keys, it's not guitar. Army of Me is crunchy, it's fun, there's a lot of swagger to it, and I think Maria chose this song because she can throw her voice around a lot in a very controlled way. The hooks are extremely strong, and I love the lyrics of this because it is about whiny complainers. Yes, stop complaining. Everything is fine. You are okay. And if you keep this up, you're going to deal with an army of me. Talk about empowering. It's a strong song. It's against whining, which is unique. You don't really hear a lot of songs talk about that. To me, the best covers are covers that you don't even know are covers, and that was the case for Army of Me. This fits the In This Moment style so well, even though the overall melody is very similar to the original. Guitarists Chris and Randy do a great job of following the original but adding a little of their flair, especially in the chorus where it's really just one note that's held with a string band, like boom, 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 and then boom, 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 which we hear in a lot of In This Moment songs. They take this song, they make it their own, and it's a great time. I would love to hear it live. It's upbeat, it's lively, and a great addition. I also really like how they snuck this one in there as a cover. It's the third track in the album. I feel like usually you have the last song is a cover, or maybe towards the end. No, track 3, where you're building momentum in the album, they stick a cover right there. Bold move, totally paid off. Ranked number 4 is the album opener and title track, Godmode. This sets the stage for the entire album in a great way. The first minute and nearly 10 seconds is a slow build or an intro that will definitely be in their live set. You can just visualize everyone getting on stage and getting ready for this drop, and Maria Brink is whispering, "What did you say to me? What did you say to me?" And you feel the build. There is a ton of tension, and where's the band gonna go? Where is this song going to go? It could go anywhere at this point. At the drop, Maria says, "I say, fuck this," and you think there's gonna be massive guitars and like a big riff before a verse, but no. When she drops that line, "fuck this," she immediately starts going into almost like a rap. She's got a great flow going. You have these tribal drums mixed with a ton of industrial sounds that are going, and it's momentum. It's rolling. And already from there, it's a big statement from the band. They're not trying to repeat the past. It's not what you expect In This Moment would do. This is diving into new territory. It's very experimental. And guess what? It pays off. For those of you that hear industrial, you're like, wait, are there any guitars? And no, in the first verse, maybe they're in the bottom of the mix, but it's very electronic sounding until this chorus hits. You get these great opening notes, boom, 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 and Maria starts singing clean. Now before that, mixed with all the electronics, Maria's voice is very distorted. There's a lot of layers going on, and it fits. I don't mind it in this song because it's supposed to be a very chaotic intro. Kind of hard to understand what she's saying a little, but that makes her vocals shine in the chorus. It feels like all the electronics are dropped at the end of the verse, and then at the chorus, it's Maria and her guitarists, and it is beautiful. It's a song that puts me in a great mood. A lot of In This Moment songs make me feel determined or give me energy or help me channel anger. Godmode puts a smile on your face. She has this swagger about her in the chorus that I haven't heard in a very long time. It's fun and it feels loose. The beginning is so tense, and then the verse is chaotic. This chorus just pauses everything. You feel comfortable, you feel confident. It's a very empowering song. It's about feeling like you're in God mode, which reminds me of video games like Doom, where you enter God mode and you're basically invincible. In the past, I've criticized songs for maybe feeling disjointed, where certain parts of the songs don't really fit with each other, or maybe the transition is weird. This song, it is disjointed, but it sounds perfect. It's such a dramatically fast transition between intro, verse, chorus, but it doesn't feel pasted together. It feels very deliberate, and it's a well-constructed song. This should be opening every In This Moment set list on their next tour. If you miss their old school heavy breakdowns, Godmode has you covered. The breakdown is simple, it's slow and heavy, so you can get some big, long-range headbanging in. There's not more else you can want from In This Moment. This is them moving in a new direction, keeping what worked for them in the past, but not duplicating it. In the choruses of Godmode, Maria Brink sounds very relaxed and confident, and I feel like that carries over into The Purge. She is spitting bars. There are a ton of lyrics in The Purge. It starts really quiet. She can shine. She has her weird kind of stuttery type deliveries that are very unique to her. In some ways, it reminds me of old school Jonathan Davis from Korn, but Maria Brink makes it enough of her own where it doesn't sound plagiaristic. This is her own unique flow. She's cooking away, and The Purge was a perfect choice as a single for this album. It isn't as dynamic as a lot of the other songs here. There's maybe a little less risk, but simplicity wins with The Purge. The verses are quiet and they lead to these very, very melodic choruses. Maria Brink sings in much more of a falsetto in the chorus and sounds phenomenal. Talk about the lyrics being on the nose. Maybe we're all fucked. Maybe we'll all burn. Maybe we're all just purging, right? Culturally, very relevant with everything that's gone on in the last few years. You hear the electronics and industrial influence more in the front of this. However, you also hear those classic In This Moment guitars. I mean, in the chorus, it's that same, like, it's that note. They're bending strings going boom, 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 boom. It's simple and effective, and as the band keeps things that tight, Maria Brink can push the envelope and be a little more progressive with her vocal melodies. And that happens a lot on this album. I think the overall chemistry of the band has not been this tight in way over a decade. As hypnotic and kind of trippy as the chorus sounds, it's still very, very catchy. So Skyburner, I described the same way. The hook isn't as prevalent as compared to The Purge. Now, these are also big statements. This song is a social statement. It's also very relatable, and the band does a great job of taking a pause after the second chorus where things get quiet, then all of a sudden you hear a little guitar riff that's picking up, and the bridge is an explosion of chaotic guitar riffs by In This Moment standards. And instead of Maria singing, she lets out this yell that goes on, I don't know how many seconds, but one of the longest screams that I have heard on a recording, and it is powerful. She has said so much in this song that she doesn't need to say more. She is just yelling out all of these frustrations. She's communicated them in a very methodical way, then a very sing-songy, beautiful way that by the time you get to the bridge, she just wants to scream. That is thoughtful songwriting right there. Hey, sometimes a scream says more than words can. Despite the high praise of The Purge, that was number 3. Number 2 is Fatebringer. It is the second to last track on the album, and it's interesting. I feel like songs towards the bottom of the album, things are slowing down. Maybe you might have a deep cut that I'll reference as like, hey, this is ranked number 8, but you should still listen to it. No. Track 9 is ranked number 2 overall. Fatebringer is going to be an anthem for this band. If it isn't, then someone needs to tell them. It is such a vintage in this moment anthem. It has an industrial metal stomp to it that reminds me of a mix of Rammstein, Marilyn Manson, and Rob Zombie. And we've heard In This Moment deliver a song like this where it has the guitars like it's such an easy beat. Those guitar riffs are great, but big shout out to Kent Dimmel on drums for keeping that that becomes very prevalent in a heavy pre-chorus where Maria sings, I don't owe you anything, you don't have control anymore. And on first listen, you think that's the main chorus, and that would be fine if it was. Instead, the song evolves further into one of the most beautiful, catchy, memorable choruses I've ever heard from In This Moment. Maria Brink sings, Fatebringer, you're not mine anymore. And it is so empowering, it's freeing, it's light. When I say light, I don't mean that it's not heavy, because there's still plenty of guitars going on, but you feel light, you feel empowered, there's like a weight off of your shoulders. It's such a great delivery. The band is so tight on this song. How it hasn't been released as a single, I do not understand. In This Moment, let me manage you. I know what you're thinking too. I have said that the band shouldn't really try to replicate their old sound, yet in Fatebringer, I have mentioned their old sounding. Yes, it is there. However, there's plenty of creativity and it's a little more progressive for them. The Purge is an awesome song in its own right. It's a great single. Fatebringer pushes the boundaries in a few other directions. They're able to pull it off because the hook and the beat are so strong and simple that the band on the outside of that starts being a little more experimental, a little more creative. You have verses where all of a sudden almost everything stops and you just kind of have this dull electronic background where Maria's singing. And then the drums pick up, then guitars come in. So you have a lot of dynamics at play. They don't cash in on Fatebringer. Fatebringer's hook and melody are fine on their own. They could have just followed that. Instead, In This Moment takes things and fattens up their sound. They expand, they evolve. It's a futuristic song for them. It has their roots in it, but this is next level evolution for a band that I think they really needed to evolve this way, but really feared they didn't have it in them. And one other aspect that is unique to Fatebringer versus other huge songs from In This Moment in the past is there are chugging guitars. Most of their guitars are very start-stop groove metal oriented, not a lot of like yet in the bridge section we get that in Fatebringer. Yet another element to one of their most fun and creative songs of their career. I am not exaggerating when I say that this has been the most difficult album for me to rank, and there's only 10 songs. I've done 15 song rankings, 14 songs, but these 10 songs are so tight, so well written, well produced, well executed, all of that. And Sanctify Me, a song that probably no one has heard of, I have ranked number 1. It beats out all the other singles, yet here we are. Sanctify Me starts with what sounds like an alarm clock sound. I make that sound, it kind of reminds me of a horror movie. Much like the best moments in this album, you have the electronics in the front. But after that, the guitars take over and we get the heaviest riff of the entire album. This is In This Moment. It's fresh sounding, but there's a crunch to it. It's heavy on the groove. We got the bending guitar notes, strings bending as usual, but this is one that you can just headbang to. There's a lot of songs that are vibey and trippy and you're kind of like out there. Sanctify Me is a straight up metal headbanger. Oftentimes after a really big crunchy guitar riff in an In This Moment song, you'll then hear them kind of back off. You'll hear a quiet verse, maybe some electronics, and you do hear that in Sanctify Me. However, the guitars don't want to stop. So Maria starts singing, I smell blood, you're fire, you're pain. After every bar, the guitars come in a little bit. They just add this extra bunch like da-da-da, and then go away. And then come back. So they never really completely relent. Like in The Purge, for example, the guitars are ferocious. They're waiting to break free. And those guitars really match the intensity in Maria Brink's delivery. She's doing that mumbling kind of rap flow that I mentioned, but she sounds a lot more menacing. It sounds dark. It's a little scary in the best way. Tension builds into the pre-chorus where you have Maria Brink screaming, "Feed your faith, your hate, your rage. I see who you are." These awesome lyrics, and she is screaming them. It's the closest to Blood era in this moment that we'll probably ever get. And once again, this pre-chorus could have been the chorus and things would have been fine. Instead, the band takes off into more progressive territory, and the chorus features Maria singing cleanly this awesome hook. This melody, this thing gets stuck in your head so easily, and it is glorious. There's no other way to describe it. She sings, "Go ahead, set me free, wash away this dirt in me." Fits in this whole theme of being baptized or being forgiven. I love the lyrical content in this song because it's about progressing, and this is such a progressive album for the band. It's like, get me to this next level, help sanctify me. In a lot of ways, that's what this album represents. After such an awesome chorus, we're back into the verses, except Maria Brink is doing that thing where she's singing soft but then letting out a scream and then coming back while she's singing the lyrics, and sings really loud, kind of screams them and comes back down. So you feel this tension build, and that makes the second pre-chorus hit even heavier than the first pre-chorus. Sanctify Me is constantly changing and building. They could have stuck with the same verse before and after the first chorus, but instead the song progresses and it builds. It fits the theme really well, but it also is pushing this band's boundaries in new directions. Sanctify Me's themes are so on point. So after the second chorus, we hear that alarm sound again. What's next? That adds to the tension, the urgency. The whole song is building. Ever since that intro, the song has been building back up to that. And now this time in the bridge, you have the guitars jump in. Ba-na, ba-na, ba-na. It's the guitars that stand out. Simple riff. Think very Korn-styled riff, but effective. Great for headbanging. Took me a few listens to really appreciate the guitar work that happens in the choruses. Now, I have said that In This Moment thrives on very simple guitar riffs. However, in the Sanctify Me choruses, there is a lot of complexity for them. It's a bit all over the place, a bit chaotic. Now, you don't really hear that right away because Maria Brink's delivery is very soothing, calm, deliberate, and methodical, yet there's chaos building up around. Everything about this song fits perfectly. It's a song that I never thought I would hear In This Moment make. It's an absolute beauty. Sanctify Me is the heaviest song, but it also is still incredibly catchy, is full of hooks, great heavy guitars. This is the In This Moment that so many people fell in love with. I was not exaggerating when I said I was really nervous to listen to this album because I have been rooting for In This Moment, yet their most recent releases have really let me down. So I went into this one expecting an average album where a few singles stood out with a bunch of filler mixed with maybe a cover song. I went in pessimistic, and I don't usually do that. Yet I was so pleasantly surprised. This is one of, if not my favorite release of the year. Yes, it is such a big statement. I realize that, but the quality of these 10 songs is simply incredible. I thought the best days of this band were in the past. This album should put them on the map. In my opinion, it hasn't really been advertised enough. I hadn't heard a single song until the album came out. This is In This Moment, mastering their songwriting while taking risks that pay off really well. They've always had this in them, yet I think they tried to deconstruct their sound so much that it worked against them. Why not be more complex? Add more electronics in it, as long as it doesn't take away from the overall heaviness, which it doesn't. It enhances these songs. The melodies are so strong and well crafted that it enables the band to explore, add some weird elements to their songs while not taking away from how memorable they are. It's a perfect mix. There are a few ballads, there are a lot of upbeat tracks, there's some dancey songs, there's some heavy moments. You can't review In This Moment without talking about Maria Brink. She is such a force of nature and one of the strongest voices in rock and metal, and I think she sounds magnificent on this album. She screams a lot less in this one versus previous albums, but to me that's not necessarily a bad thing. She expands her range even more. There's not really a style that she can't pull off. She goes for these more hypnotic, kind of euphoric sounding choruses that I have never heard her attempt before. She almost sounds angelic, which a lot of times she sounds like a demon. She has this great balance of all these different approaches, and the rest of the band sounds great. They actually have not sounded better. I think the production quality is outstanding. It's an album that everyone seems to be on the same page. By far their best album since Blood. And I would actually compare it to Blood's quality. Now I think the main singles on Blood are some of the best the band has ever written. However, there was some filler. Pound for pound, Godmode is extremely consistent. These are all high quality songs that all fit the rock, metal, industrial, progressive style that Godmode is. I am not exaggerating. This is my favorite or tied for favorite album of the year, and therefore receives a 9.4 out of 10, the highest rated album that I have done so far. Godmode is an absolute treat. This is not just for In This Moment fans. This is for fans of heavy music and great songwriting. This album should really solidify the band's place. It is a well-crafted album. They take risks. It's adventurous. It's bold. It's confident. Album number 8, you usually don't expect the band to pull off. They pull this off with flying colors. In This Moment, Godmode, one of the best albums of the year. All right, my friends, give it to me straight. Did I completely overrate this album? How do you feel about these rankings? I have The Purge number 3. I have 2 songs that no one has heard of in the top 2. I want to hear your thoughts. Please like, comment, subscribe to Rock Metal Fan Nation. Let's get this conversation going, and do not skip out on my favorite album of the year. I should clarify and say my favorite album of the year so far, because there have been so many amazing releases that have happened in the last couple months, and there are still plenty more to come. I can't wait to dive into those with you. I will see you all soon. Stay heavy.